the supplemental lab session. And as usual, you know, when we're in my view, you're seeing things a little bit differently than you would have. Now, I'm going to go down here to the desktop, and I have a couple of some files I'm going to get rid of that I use just kind of practicing for this, and we'll just and I'll talk about that here in just a minute. So I'm going to get rid of those. Nothing that's important. Okay, and I'll go back up to the here at the Canvas room, and what we're going to do today is we're going to work with a couple of files. Now, there was a database case that was due on the 20th. Okay, and you've already uploaded that, or you should have. That was the movies data case. It's movies, the one that's there in the Miller handbook. There's another case there that I wanted to talk about. It isn't one that you have to upload or do anything with. It's called sauces. Okay, you've already done the movies year-to-date solution and the movies CIS solution. This is a case. This is also in Miller. It's another one of these that involves sauces, and again, it gives me a great opportunity to reinforce some ideas. But we're also going to do a little bit of work with uses for some decision making. So I'm going to take sauces year-to-date solution, and I'll open that, and then I'm going to download it. Okay, I'll enable the content. I'll click File, Save As, Access Database, and I'll come down here and find where I want to put it. I'm going to put it here on my desktop, and you'll notice I've got it's number 4. It's because I downloaded it a few times, and then I'll enable the content, and I'm going to close it off. Okay. Now, I'm also going to go back in to the modules, and I'm going to get that sauces ISQ. There it is, sauces IS solution. Open that, and we're going to download it to the desktop. Enable the content, File, Save As, and I'll put it on the desktop as well. And there we be. We'll close it off. Now, I'm going to diminish my browser, and I'm going to find those 2 databases. And there's sauces, test your design, that's that TYD, and then sauces IS solution, that's the information specification solution. This case, the sauces case is there in the green book, in the Miller book, so you want to use it. I'm going to open up the test your design first, and let's talk about it. Here's the shutter. It's at tables. So let's come down and find all access objects. And you'll see the 4 objects that we have in all databases. We have tables, queries, forms, and reports. Okay? They're all here. And again, we have the familiar star schema in here. You say, how do you know? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm going to look at the, I'm going to click on Database Tools. I'm going to click Relationships, and we'll see how these 2 relate to each other. Okay, I'm going to turn that around. In this sense, the table category is a parent to the table product. Table category is a dimension table. Then there's attributes. What's the family? What's the product family code? Because they have product families, like they have barbecue sauces, and then they have particular types of sauces that they sell. So you can see that you can see a little bit about the structure of their products how they're categorized. And if this is a large organization, they may even have people who just handle sauces and some that handle other types of products. We've got the code, and this, of course, ties these two together, and it's an inner join. Because they have to match. So we have that, and we have that family code, and that's how we tie these together. Now, if I had a table that fed into category, okay, a subdimension table, then I would start to have what we call the snowflake schema. And you saw, like with Northwinds, how complicated this can get. Well, we'll close this off, and I don't want to save those changes. And let's look at the table product, which is it's a fact table of sorts. And you say, what do you mean? Well, we've got some data over here that uses dimensions, but we're also inputting some raw data into this table. You say, where is it coming from? Well, we'll close it off. We'll take a look. And it's coming from the product form. So as orders are placed, okay, as orders are placed, they get filled in. They open up that form. They take the order, and then it builds the table. You say, how do you know that? It's simple. I'm going to click here on the form product. I'm going to click on database tools. I'm going to click on object dependencies. And I will see objects that depend on me. There are none, but objects that I depend on, the form product depends upon the table product. I will see if there are any objects that depend on the form product, and they're not. So the form product is drawn from the product table, and that product table now is a fact table, if you will, because it records facts as well as data about dimensions. Okay, and we've talked about that, and the star schema versus the snowflake schema. We'll close that off, and then as usual we have reports. Okay, and then we have the weekly inventory report. Let's open up the low in stock report. And they have a product number, quantity on hand, minimum inventory, and the recommended batch amount. Okay. Now I'm going to click on this low in stock report, and I'm going to go over to the design view because I'm curious about this recommended batch amount. Okay, and I'm curious about how did they compute it, and so I'll just open this up and do a little acuity here so I can see what I got going on. And this recommended batch amount is the maximum inventory level per product minus the quantity on hand. And so let's look at that for just a minute. Let's go back up to the form view. Pardon me, the report view. There it is. And we did some work there. We'll close this and we won't save it. No, but we see how it was done by going down to design and seeing that they had put in. Now open up that low stock report and let's open it up. And we can and we see they have the quantity on hand. Okay. and the maximum inventory level, and they have a recommended batch amount. Okay. I want to go back down in here again and look at this because I'm a little bit curious. So I'm going to size this out again and go back down to the design view. I'm going to come down to this unbound text box. And this is the maximum level of inventory minus the quantity on hand. And I want to go and look at this for a minute. So I'm going to open up the table product, and the quantity on hand is 140. And I'm looking at let's look at number 2 for a moment. We have 100 units on hand, and the minimum inventory level is 140. Which is interesting. We've got product number 2, we've got 100 units on hand. We have a minimum inventory of 140, and we use 35 a day. So I want to close that. I'm going to go back to the low in stock report and open it up. Look at the recommended batch amounts. And that's the maximum inventory level minus the quantity on hand. Now we'll go up to the report view. That's strange. So we'll close that off. We're not going to save any changes. That makes no sense. So doing a little bit of work here with this. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. I haven't played with it, but we're doing a little bit of surveillance on this to see how it works. And I'm going to go back to the low in stock report for a minute. Go down to the design view. Recommended batch amount. And I'm going to copy that and I'm going to put it into a Word pad. A little bit of work there. I want to take a look at this. I'll go back up to the report view. We'll close that and we won't save any changes. All right, now on product number 2, let's look at this for a minute. We have a quantity on hand of 100. And the maximum inventory level of 240. So let's look at this for a minute. So this is basically this equals 240 minus 100 equals 140. So that's where they got the 140. Now I'm just kind of doing preliminary checking of this just to see if it makes sense. And let's go back to that low in stock and open it up. And sure enough, it says recommended batch amount is 110. So I'm going to go back in and look at this for a minute. Something doesn't right. Just doesn't look right with this. Okay, I need to plug in. I'm having every kind of problem today I could possibly have, so I need to plug in. We all have these kinds of days. I'm having one of them, so you can tell I'm not sitting here reading you a script. I'm actually doing this. I'm plugging this jewel back in to get it to a power source to get the power back up. So hopefully it will start charging itself. Now, I'm going to go back into the design view of this thing, and I want to look at that batch amount recommended. And here it is, maximum inventory level minus the quantity on hand. That would be 140, okay? But the recommended batch amount, these guys say, that makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense, no. And I'll go back and look at this. So on product number 2, the quantity on hand is 100. The minimum inventory level is 140. Now the maximum amount on that let's look at that for a minute. The maximum inventory amount, that's where I messed myself up, is 110. Yikes, Mr. Keith. Yeah, so it's right. What a dummy I am. So it is actually 210 minus 100 equals 110. So to get a batch order, they've basically taken the maximum inventory minus the quantity on hand, and that gives them a batch order of 110. Now, we could, if we wanted, compute an economic order quantity, and I want to show you real quickly a page that deals with the EOQ and shows us the formula, which is the square root of 2 times A times CP, and that's divided by CH. Now, A is the annual demand, okay? The annual holding cost, that's the annual holding cost per unit is the CH, and then the CP is the cost per order. Okay, so this is EOQ. As you can see, this is about using the total cost equation, and here we can figure out that first number. So we would have to get the annual units, okay? And so I'm going to go back in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is get the annual units computed. Okay. In fact, let's just do this. We'll close off. And I'm going to export let's open up this low in stock report. And it doesn't tell us, you know, what we need to do. Now they give us a batch figure, but this low in stock report down here is just this is not really very good. So we're going to do a little bit of work here. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the top part of that EOQ. Okay. And in that case, we're going to, yeah, I'm going to do EOQ. I'm going to do EOQ EOQ numerator, and that's going to be 2 times, and I would create a little bracket here, annual usage, and that's going to be, we're going to have to figure out how much they sell per day. And well, let's look at this for a minute. Let's find where their sales are. We'll open that back up. And they give us a quantity on hand. The daily demand. So it's going to be a daily demand. Times, and we had the cost per unit. The holding, the annual cost to place an order. Now we'll go back here and let's say that times it costs them, let's say it costs them $40. So we have 2 times the annual demand times the cost to place an order. So we got EOQ, and we'll call that EOQ num for EOQ numerator. Let's go back here now, and I'm going to go back to the design view. Of table product. That, and I don't want to mess with that table. I want to come in here and I'm going to create, I'm going to go back here to the low in stock report. I'm going to open it back up, go into design view on it. And I'm going to put an expression over here, the EOQ numerator. Take a look at that. There's the EOQ numerator. And so we have here, it's 2 times the daily demand times 40. In other words, I'll go back to that web page, 2 times the annual demand times the cost per order. And I got the annual demand by taking the daily demand. I really should have taken, I really don't have the daily demand. I need the annual demand there. So what I have is not right. We'll go back here and we'll get rid of this. We'll get the numerator. So I'll go back to my trusty notepad, and the EOQ num is 2 times the daily demand, and I'm going to say and that they operate 300 days a year. Okay. And their cost of holding is $40. Cost per order is $40. And let's see, I've got 1, 2. So I'm going to add there, and this should bounce off our parentheses. Here, let's see what we get. I think we're right. As you can tell, I haven't practiced this before. Did it on the fly, so it's going to be a little sketchy probably. Yep. What I figured. That's right. We want to. Got 2 coming in. Oh, there's the culprit. I didn't put that bracket there. There we go. That ought to do it. So we get the numerator for that figure. Let's see what this does to us this time. There we go. Now we have the EOQ numerator, okay? And now we want to do the EOQ denominator. So we're going to EOQ denom, and that's going to be the formula for that is going to be the holding costs per unit. And we're going to assume that the holding cost per unit is $3.50. And I'm just going to put 1 times, put a parenthesis, one times 350. And this ought to give us the EOQ denominator. See, I'm kind of breaking this down. See, now you understand why I'd say, database is for a database and number crunching is for an analytical tool like a spreadsheet, because this is painful almost, isn't it? Now we have the numerator for the EOQ and we have the denominator for the EOQ. Now we can do the square root, okay? And we're going to do the EOQ, and that's going to be the SQR of bracket the EOQ numerator close the bracket divided by the EOQ, and we'll do a bracket there, the EOQ denominator. The bracket, and we'll fill that in, close that, and this ought to do it. So this should give us the EOQ, which is the square root of that. So we're going to have to add another parenthesis facing to the right. And then, of course, then one facing the left and one facing the right. That'll do it. Well, let's see if it plays nice with us. And there we are. Now we have the economic order quantity. We use the economic order quantity. What we did was basically we went in here and we created the numerator for that equation and then the denominator, and then we executed a square root on that figure. And you can check it out yourself if you want to pull up an Excel file and do it. And I'm just going to check it right now. And that's 8.4 divided by 3.5. Yeah. And that gives us, that's correct. I just checked it on Excel, so that's accurate. So now what we've done is we've taken some data, okay? And now we have information. We know how much to order based upon this economic order quantity tool, okay? So I'm going to save that, and then I can run a report. So I know how much to order. And this is a lot more than the batch orders that they were talking about, okay? I don't know where they got their batch order figure. They just took a simplistic figure. This EOQ is probably a much better way because it minimizes, it balances off, it washes out the difference between the cost to place an order and the holding cost per unit. The cost to place an order is like a fixed cost, okay? And the cost to hold inventory is a variable cost, one that changes with the amount of stuff you've got around. And I'll pop back over, open up the web browser and let you see that again using the economic order quantity model. So we did a little bit of work there, and we'll close this off. And I'm going to save the changes in this dreamy thing that I just created. And come back to the view. Now, we've got some other queries. Okay. And we'll put this down. We'll close it off. And we have some other queries that we've run. One is we'll open it up and look at it. This is the minimum inventory level that's greater than what? Well, let's go down to the design view. Anywhere where we have a minimum inventory level greater than 150 units, we want to know about it. Okay, that's all that's telling us. Here we have a production cost figure. And let's go in and look at that in the design view. And anywhere where the production cost is less than 2.5. $2.50. Okay. we have another one. We want to see where the production cost looks like is less than $3. We can tell by going to the design beam. Yep, less than $3. So now these are queries, okay, and they're the prelude to making some kind of decision. So one of the things about this is when we run a query, typically it leads us to another question that we have to answer, okay. And here we want to know, okay, what are we after, in terms of the products that we have that have a cost greater than $3. Well, there it is. And that's that information specification question 4. And they do it for each of these, the TD5. So you can see we're going through that familiar pattern of pulling data from tables, putting them into a query, and using and generating a report. Now, here are the forms again for putting in the product, which is the product table. And as you can see, this jewel is not too bad, okay? So we open that up, and those are the sauces. Test your design, and then we have the sauces ISQ, and again here we are, low in stock reports. So we tested our design to see if it would give us what we needed. It did, and so we ran it. Now we're gonna, as I said before, we would have some other query building, but we'd start with these basic queries and then try to make some decisions. And what we always want to know is how much are we selling versus how much do we have in stock, okay, versus how much do we need to order. And we're trying to balance that off, the cost per order with the holding cost per unit. In other words, we got to store the stuff somewhere, or it's in transit somewhere. Okay, and it's the same familiar pattern, and away we go. So that pretty much ends that piece of it. You'll see that I went out and got some more data. I found the EOQ model, and then we built that. We built the EOQ denominator. Then we did the denominator, okay? And then we did the EOQ itself by using the square root function of this quotient, the numerator over the denominator. And so I took the easy way out. But see, this is the problem you have with an Access versus having what you could do in Excel, okay? And again, then the economic order quantity that we did would tell us how much we should order. That is the best fit, that's the best tool we have for determining orders. And notice how much larger it was than the batch order. And the one thing, the EOQ though, that you see doesn't take into account is the rate of sales on a daily basis. It takes annual amounts, okay? And so you could modify it a little bit by dividing that by the number of operating days that you use. It just depends on how complicated you want to get with that formula. Most of you will be interacting with software. If you're doing any kind of ordering and dealing with that, you'll have something that will trigger and tell you, hey, it's time to reorder, okay? you're getting low, right? And when you're selling 25 something a day and you order 100, that means you and you have 100 on hand. Think about this. I have 100 on hand. Okay. I sell 25 a day. So I've got 4 days of stock basically. If I order 100 and it takes me 4 days to get the 100, I'm in trouble. So I have to make sure that I purchase enough to tide me over. And the EOQ is designed to wash down annual sales, because that's what ratios do. They wash data for us, and that demand level and that cost to order versus the fixed cost to order versus the variable costs, that is how much I have to keep around. Okay, because the cost, it's going to cost me $40 whether I order 400 or 110. So if in this case it costs me $40 to place an order, why buy 110 units if I could buy 489? Now obviously the holding costs are an issue, but if I'm concerned about running out of inventory, okay, then this is a good tool for me. And notice the kind of buffer it gives me. If I'm ordering 489, okay, the next question is how quickly do I get them? And that's where you start to get in a little bit more sophisticated usage of having to know how long will it take me to get the stuff here. Okay, well, that's pretty much it, folks. Again, you'd already uploaded the stuff that was due on the 20th, the database. So this is just a freebie, but this is that sauces case from the Miller Handbook. And so we'll go back here to a Canvas. I'll move this over a little bit. I'll find Canvas here somewhere. There we are. And we'll go back up to the home. And just so that you know what's going on, I'm going to click syllabus. And of course, on the 24th, today was you would have a database to upload. And then on the 24th, the business movies exercise, which I really am looking forward to. Folks, that's it. I'll go back to the home plate, and I'll stop the sharing, and I'm going to stop the recording and end the meeting. Hope you have a great one. I will see you online or maybe in Oklahoma City. Remember, if you come to Oklahoma City, you're a ground-based student. If I'm not going to be there, in other words, if I'm just going to broadcast from my home office, I'll send everybody an email and say, don't come up to the BGCO. I won't be up there. I haven't made my mind up, but you'll have plenty of time to know whether or not I'm going to be there. Okay?